Conference-driven publishing. That's good. Basically, a talk about procrastination. I didn't write it whilst I was sitting in the previous talk, honestly. So some of you may have heard of the concept of conference-driven development, something we've been talking about for the last few years. In theory, it goes like this. So you propose a talk for a conference about something really cool, but as yet unwritten. Stuff happens, and then you give the talk to rapturous applause. That's how it's supposed to work. The practice is often slightly different. So step one is the same. You propose to talk about something cool but unwritten. Then other far more interesting but not at all useful stuff happens. And then you give a talk about all the stuff that you should have done, but you might still do in the future. Sorry, you haven't quite got it done yet. Conference-driven publishing, it turns out, is a lot like that. So, was anybody here at the LBW last year? So here's me in the lightning talks. I can see it actually on here. It's not a particularly good projector. And I was talking about this book called, there's going to be a guide to modern web programming techniques in Perl. And this is my mistake. If I could go back to any point in my life and stop myself making a mistake, it would be this one. So that's today. Okay, so how's it going? It's not finished. But what have I done? So, I've got a website, but for those of you who saw me give the talk last year, you'll know that I actually bought this domain 5 years ago, or 6 years ago now, so that wasn't really much of an achievement. There's a Twitter account, but you can't see the last tweet in it was the day after the LPW last year. We've got GitHub, so that's important. There's actually, there's a plan of what the book's going to contain. And I think the thing I'm proudest of in the last year, there's a commit from someone that's not me. Dorwood was bored on the train home from the LBW last year and wrote an introduction to HTTP for me. There's even text. I have written chapters. But see, process is important when you're working on a project like this. Good tools are really important. So I had a bit of a think about producing ebooks, and what I wanted to do was to take something in a easy to handle input and then turn it into, I decided that as a minimum I needed to be able to produce EPUBs, MOBIs and PDFs. So this is, in the GitHub repository, there's a makefile which basically implements my process for doing stuff. So what I decided was that I would start with Markdown, because Markdown's shiny and cool and everyone knows it. Well, everyone knew Markdown except me, so I had to give myself an excuse to teach myself Markdown. And then there's this wonderful piece of software out there called Pandoc. Pan from, is it Greek for everything? Or many things? And it converts between document formats. So I can use that to convert from Markdown to EPUB. And then some of you might have seen Steve's talk in here half an hour ago. He talked about KindleGen to generate Kindle books, and it will generate. One of the things it will do, it will convert from EPUB to MOBI. Some of you will have come across Canva. Those of you who have come across Canva will be thinking, God, what is that? The user interface is horrible. But it turns out it actually has a command line interface that you can use, and you can use it to convert from EPUBs to PDFs. So you put all this together, and you have input files in Markdown, Pandoc converts to EPUB, then this KindleGen generates a Mobi, and ebook convert is the Calibre command line tool to producing PDFs. But the thing is, that all happened months ago. I had that all done soon after Christmas. So what else has happened? Why haven't I written this bloody book? Well, so this is my homework. So you remember this slide from the start about what goes wrong with conference-driven development? Well, a lot of other more interesting stuff happened. I went on holiday at Christmas. This is me in Zanzibar with a coconut hat. We had a general election in the UK, and it became vitally important that I wrote a website that monitored the general election. If you read Pearl Hacks, my blog, you'll know I wrote a dashboard to monitor what was going on with all my CPAN modules. I took some grungy old code that I've been using to run my contracting business for the last 20 years, and I cleaned that up enough to put it on GitHub and write a blog post about it. I built a secret web app for my wife's school, which blew up on the day it went live and caused much embarrassment. I did a lot of work preparing for Yahtzee Europe. I've been preparing stuff for the LBW. I wrote a book, but just not the right book. I wrote this to. It's some repurposed blog posts, which I just wrote to try out my process to make sure that it worked. I managed to go from markup right through to it's on Amazon. You can go and buy it, and you should. It's very good.
Could you demonstrate that?
What?
Go from markup all to Amazon.
I've learned not to do live demos. But so in general, I've been doing all sorts of stuff that aren't getting this book written. In short, I've been procrastinating. So the book's not finished. And realistically, it's not going to be finished before the next LBW. I already have a stack of other more interesting things, and to be honest, more lucrative things that I could be doing with my time next year than writing this book. Yeah, interesting, stroke, lucrative. But I mean, if you're interested in taking the project on, let me know, and I'm happy to help in any way you can. You feel free to take my plan or whatever. However, remember that tool chain that I was talking about several slides ago, the one that involved Markdown and Pandoc and KindleGen and Calibre, the one that looked like that? Well, it turns out, see, that could work for you too. The large publishers have pretty much given up on writing new Perl books because they think they don't sell. Although actually, since I wrote this slide, I do hear that they're sniffing around for authors for Perl 6 books at the moment. At least a couple of the publishers are. But the fact that O'Reilly and Addison Wesley and people like that no longer seem to be particularly interested in publishing Perl books doesn't mean that we have to stop writing them. Amazon, as I've demonstrated this year, makes it really easy to publish and sell ebooks. Other ebook marketplaces are also available. So how about imagining the Pearl book publishing as a kind of cottage industry? Write the books that you want to see, or try and persuade other people to write the books for you. I understand the generally accepted token of barter in circumstances like this is a pint of beer, or several pints of beer. And the more you barter with people with pints of beer, the more chance there is that they'll say yes. The other thing to bear in mind with ebooks is there's no minimum size for an ebook. So if you're writing a proper book and it's not this thick, people think you're ripping them off. That people won't buy it. But an ebook, you can make it whatever size it needs to be and price it appropriately. My 18 Classic Albums book is really not very long, but it only costs a couple of quid. Some of you may have seen the Plaque Handbook, for example. It's not through Amazon, but you can go to handbook.plaquepearl.org. And what's happened here is that Miyagawa has taken all the documentation for Plaque and run it through a process pretty similar to mine, I'm sure, and produced an ebook, which you can go to his website and buy. But it's not the size of a normal book. It's quite a slim little volume. Is anyone old enough to remember this? A couple of you. So this was published. Sorry?
I have two of them.
I threw mine away about 4 years ago. So this is something that O'Reilly published in 1997. It's a boxed set of Pearl books, none of which you could get elsewhere. And there was a CD in there as well with a snapshot of CPAN, because that's really useful, because that never goes out. But this is the problem, because two of the volumes in there were the Pearl module reference, which were compiled and edited by these two people. And of course, what they'd done is they had chosen a few dozen popular and useful CPAN modules from the time. And as Dead Tree, that doesn't work, but by the time it gets onto the bookshelves, it's out of date. But that kind of thing could work pretty well as an ebook. Does anyone remember this book? So in about 2008, Dave Rolsky took a TPF grant to massively improve the documentation for Moose. So that's why. It was originally written by Stephen, and then Dave Rolsky upgraded the documentation, wrote tutorials and cookbooks and stuff like that. And what's happened here is Leon took that documentation, passed it through some formatting, squirted out some PDF, I think, at the other end, and uploaded it to Lulu, which takes ebooks and converts them to real books. And you could go to Amazon, or maybe not Amazon, but Lulu, certainly would give you a real book. And again, it's quite a slim little volume because that documentation doesn't spread out particularly well. But there's plenty of ideas out there for things that can be turned into ebooks. I forgot to include it in this list, but there's a link on Meta CPAN. If you go to any module page, there's a link which automatically generates an EPUB or a MOBI of that documentation, so you can download it straight to your Kindle. And perhaps, if we can get some of these self-published Pearl ebooks out there, it might just get a little bit of a buzz that the publishers pick up on and might reignite the Pearl publishing industry. That is, after all, how 50 Shades of Grey got started. I'm not suggesting for a second that a Pearl book would outsell 50 Shades of Grey. Last year I read this book, and again this was published as an ebook, by Guy Kawasaki. And it's all about, so he posits the idea that there are three parts to writing a book. Now the first part, the actual writing the book, as I've proven this year, is actually quite difficult and takes too much time. The last part of the book, the last of the three, is the bit about actually marketing your book and actually getting people to buy that book. And as my 18 classic albums also show, that's also very hard. But what I also think I've proved this year is the bit in the middle, the bit actually being a publisher, the bit of taking the input files and creating the book and getting it out there actually on sale. That's piss easy these days. Really not hard at all. So don't be like me. Don't procrastinate. Get out there and write a book. Thank you very much. Any questions? Yes.
How many did you sell?
How many?
Did you sell of the 18 albums?
So far, I have sold 6 copies, which has made me very nearly £6.50.
Partly paid the marketing budget.
Sorry?
Partly paid the marketing budget.
Yes, I've spent £20 on Facebook ads. Any other questions?
Do you reckon there is a market for pro books?
I think at the level, well, two things. I keep hearing people say, I wish there was a book about this.
Really, okay.
But I suspect that the publishers know their business better than I do, and that they know that the market for those books doesn't spread very far outside the half a dozen people that say, I really like that book, and that's the problem. But that's the area where ebooks fit in that space really nicely, because you don't need to sell tens of thousands of books to make an ebook successful, or at least profitable.
How does the royalties on an ebook versus a physical book compare? Because I know you've written physical books, haven't you? So
Yes. So the thing with there's a few differences with a physical book. The publisher takes most of the money because they put in quite a lot of effort as well, and they produce the books, they ship the books. So, for example, my Data Munging with Pearl costs about, I think you could buy it, I think that this price was about £28 or something like that. I reckon I got on average about £1 for every copy sold. But with an ebook, firstly, it's all mine. I don't have to pay anybody else. And secondly, the costs are much lower. There's no production costs. So for 18 classic albums, I think I'm getting something like £1.10. So I'm getting more per copy from a book that sells on Amazon for £2 than I was for a proper book that was selling for 25 quid.
Did you sell more than 6 copies of your Data Munging book?
I sold substantially more than 6 copies, yes. But and that's where the E from 8, from the entrepreneur stuff comes. So you've got a book that is, can I say this now? Yes, let's say it. If you've got a book that is being marketed by a publisher, even if that publisher are as rubbish at marketing as Manning are, you can still sell thousands of books. If you have a book that's being marketed by a publisher who are as good at marketing as O'Reilly are, for example, then you can sell an awful lot more books than putting Facebook ads on your friend's page asking them to buy your book. Well, it's only 20 past now. I've gone very quickly. But if there's no more questions, I guess that means you go to the front of the queue for the coffee break, which means that you'll be very nice about me in the feedback box.
You always are.